A powerful tech giant publicly humiliates a black employee at a lavish garden party. A single viral video sparks a national reckoning. A female CEO realizes she can't humiliate anyone after being overthrown. Two lives intertwine, transforming a broken system from the inside out. Watch this story from waitress to successful life to the end, and share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video and subscribe to the channel, let's move on to our story. Enjoy watching. The clink of champagne flutes and the distant hum of classical jazz floated through the air like a perfume. On the sprawling lawn of the Langford estate, 5 acres of manicured excess in Westchester County, waiters weaved through clusters of wealthy guests like shadows in white. Overhead, fairy lights flickered as the sun dipped behind the Hudson. Catherine Langford stood at the heart of it all, towering in 6-inch heels and a silk Versace jumpsuit that screamed both money and fearlessness. She gripped a glass of rose in one hand, her laugh as polished and practiced as the glass sculptures peppered around her garden. Her sharp, symmetrical face rarely cracked, but when it did, when she smiled, it was something cold and calculated. "People are so sensitive these days," she said to her circle of investors and tech founders. "We didn't make billions by tiptoeing around feelings." Her friends nodded, lips tight with polite complicity. Catherine's voice carried even when it wasn't raised. From behind the open bar near the patio, Marcus Reed watched the crowd, his jaw locked but eyes cool. He was wiping down glasses with a kind of mechanical grace, trying not to be noticed, but catching everything. He was used to being invisible in places like this. In some ways it helped. 28. Harlem born. 3rd job this month. He needed the money. His mom's medication was overdue, and the lights at home were one missed payment from going dark. But none of that showed on his face. To the guests he was a statue with a shaker. A uniform. "Hey boss man," a voice called. It was Danny, one of the other temps, nodding toward the main tent. "She wants a batch of Negronis sent to the cigar table." "Like now?" Marcus gave a tight nod and got to work. As he measured out the Campari and vermouth, he heard Catherine's laugh again, louder this time. She was holding court at a nearby table, surrounded by men in navy blazers and women in pale pastels. Then, mid-conversation, her gaze drifted to him. "Watch this," she whispered, then raised her voice. "Excuse me, Marcus, right?" He paused, set down the jigger and turned to her. "Yes, ma'am?" "Oh good, I got it right," she smirked. "See, I pride myself on remembering my staff. But you're new, aren't you? What's your story? Did you come with the house? Or just the bar?" Laughter. Not from everyone but enough. Marcus froze. He could feel the eyes on him. Measuring. Waiting. Testing. He swallowed the heat rising in his chest and gave a thin smile. "Just here for the night, ma'am? From Thompson Events." "Well," she said, waving her hand dismissively, "do send someone over with those Negronis. You're not the one smoking cigars tonight, are you?" More laughter. Marcus nodded, turned away and exhaled, slowly. His hands moved with care, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. This wasn't the first time. Probably wouldn't be the last. But something about this one cut deeper. Across the lawn, someone had filmed the exchange. A guest maybe. Just a few seconds, but enough to catch the joke, the laughter, and Marcus's frozen expression. That video would be online before dessert. Back at the edge of the party, Marcus finished the Negronis and handed them to a server. He moved toward the utility tent, needing a moment of stillness. As he passed the pool, he spotted a young boy kicking his feet in the water. Catherine's son, Teddy, maybe 10. "Hey," the boy said, "you look mad." Marcus blinked. "Do I?" "Yeah. You're doing that thing my mom does when she's mad but says she's not." Marcus smiled despite himself. "Thanks for the heads up. Is my mom mean?" That stopped him. He looked down at the kid, round face, eyes like his mother's but open. "Honest? She's complicated." Teddy nodded like he understood but probably didn't. "She says we're better than most people. But I don't know what that means." "Then don't believe it," Marcus said gently. "Figure out what you think." The boy looked down at his feet and said nothing. Moments later, a nanny came rushing up, apologizing profusely and whisking him away. An hour later, the party began winding down. Guests trickled out in Ubers and black cars. The servers swept up the broken glass and uneaten canapes. Marcus packed his things in silence. Catherine approached, a wine glass in one hand, now barefoot on the grass. "You know," she said, "you handled that little moment earlier with poise." Marcus didn't reply. "Honestly, you should be thanking me," she went on. "You'll probably get tips out of it. These people love a story." He looked at her, really looked. Not at the clothes, the hair, the practiced elegance, but the person underneath. Something cracked and insecure, desperate to be above. "I'll pass on the tips," he said. "But thanks for the insight." Her smile faltered just slightly. "Careful. There's always another bartender waiting in line." "Maybe," Marcus said, slinging his bag over his shoulder. "But there's always another millionaire waiting to fall." And with that he walked away, quiet, composed, but burning with something that didn't have a name yet. Something that would change everything. By sunrise, the Langford estate still glittered with the remnants of excess. Empty bottles, crumpled linen napkins, cigarette butts stubbed out and champagne flutes. But beneath the surface gloss, something had shifted. The video had gone viral. 17 seconds. That's all it took. A shaky clip posted at 1:12 a.m. on TikTok by a junior investment associate named Caleb, captioned "White millionaires still think this is funny in 2025, showed Catherine Langford's face in perfect high-resolution smugness, followed by her racially charged quip and the sharp, chilling silence afterward. Then Marcus's stunned, locked expression. By 8 a.m. it had 2.1 million views. By 10:30 a.m., it hit CNN. By noon, Langford Innovations was in crisis mode. Catherine sipped her almond milk latte and stared at her phone in disbelief. "This is a joke," she said to her publicist, pacing her glass-walled office overlooking Midtown. "I've been to Black Lives Matter fundraisers. I have a diversity director." "You also mocked a black man to his face," the publicist replied flatly, flipping through a spiral notebook. "In front of cameras. It doesn't matter how you meant it, it matters how it landed. This is not blowing over." Catherine scoffed, rubbing her temples. "It was banter. Jesus. I was trying to be charming. Maybe try not being charming next time." The publicist's phone buzzed. She and Tech just pulled their partnership. That's $6 million off Q4. And we're hearing murmurs of a board response. Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Over a stupid joke?" "No," the publicist said. "Over your brand becoming radioactive." Marcus sat on the cracked leather couch in his mother's apartment in Harlem, holding a cheap phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of unread texts. Dozens of interview requests. MSNBC, NPR, Vice. Old high school classmates were DMing him. Some to support him. Some just for clout. "Boy, you better not say a damn thing until we know what they want," his mother, Denise, called from the kitchen. "They'll smile in your face and twist your words." He nodded. Truth was, he didn't know what he wanted. He hadn't slept. The phone screen glowed like it was watching him. His sister Sierra sat beside him, scrolling Twitter. "She said you should thank her." "On tape," she muttered. "I can't believe it. That's some real Gone with the Wind typist." "Sierra. Sorry." Marcus leaned back thinking. About the look on Catherine's face when she said it. How natural it came to her. How routine. The laughter from the crowd. The long walk off her lawn, through the night, toward nothing certain. He wasn't angry. He was something worse, focused. At Langford HQ, the glass castle started to splinter. Shareholders began circulating a petition for an emergency board vote. Catherine's second-in-command, Avery Burke, released a vague statement about ethical standards and workplace dignity. 3 employees publicly resigned on LinkedIn. And the internet, was relentless. They found old tweets from Catherine's college days. They found a podcast clip where she complained about the entitlement of underrepresented founders. They uncovered her quote from a 2021 Fast Company profile where she said, "I didn't grow up with privilege. I earned it. I don't owe anyone an apology for being excellent." The backlash moved faster than the PR team. That night, Catherine went live on Instagram. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun. No makeup. Natural light from the penthouse window. "I want to speak from the heart," she began, "because I think that's what's missing from this whole conversation." It was a disaster. She said the word misunderstood 6 times. She referred to Marcus as the bartender. She used the phrase cancel culture. She quoted Maya Angelou, then misattributed the quote to Oprah. By the next morning, The company had lost another 8% in stock valuation. Marcus finally broke his silence with a single tweet. It's not about being offended. It's about dignity. About power. About the way someone's humanity can be reduced to a punchline. That moment wasn't unique, it was just filmed. I've lived it my whole life. Now you've seen it too. It was retweeted 113,000 times in 12 hours. He followed it up with a longer statement. Poised, deliberate, firm. No rage. Just truth. He didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't even ask for an apology. He asked for accountability. 3 days after the party, Catherine's lawyer reached out to Marcus's email. She wanted to meet. Marcus's first instinct was no. This wasn't his job. He didn't want to help clean up her mess. He didn't want to be trotted out for optics or performative reconciliation. But something inside him whispered, this might be your moment. His cousin Andre, a civil rights lawyer, helped him vet the terms. The meeting would be private. No press. A neutral location in Manhattan. No preconditions. The room was beige, sterile, and cold. Catherine looked smaller in person, stripped of the grandeur and lights. She wore flats. No makeup. Her voice cracked when she spoke. I'm sorry, she said. For what I said. For the way I said it. For making you feel. Marcus raised a hand. It's not about how I felt. It's about what you said. What you meant. And what it means to people who look like me. Silence stretched between them. I don't need your apology, he said. But I think the world does. Catherine looked down. Then looked up. What if we did it? On TV. A real conversation. Not some PR stunt. You and me. 1 hour. Let people hear it from both of us. Marcus studied her. Measured her. He didn't believe she was reformed. But he believed she was scared. And scared people could be shaped. I'll do it, he said, if I control the narrative. If I ask the first question. And if I get to say the last word. She blinked. You want to host it? I want to own it. Back in Harlem, Sierra stared at her brother like he'd grown horns. You're going on TV with her? I'm not going to smile and nod, he said. I'm going to tell the truth. His mom lit a cigarette she wasn't supposed to have. Just remember what I said, baby. Don't let them turn you into their mascot. He kissed her forehead. I won't. As he left the apartment, his phone buzzed again. It was MSNBC. The subject line read, Exclusive, The Apology Hour, Langford vs. Reed, Sunday at 8. Marcus stared at the screen. He was about to walk back into the lion's den. But this time he wouldn't be serving drinks. He'd be serving judgment. Langford Innovations was bleeding out. On paper, Catherine Langford still held the reins to one of the most promising AI startups on the East Coast. But behind the high-rise windows and investor decks, the empire was crumbling. 5 key partnerships had dissolved in 72 hours. 4 board members had called for a vote of no confidence. 3 venture capital firms had suspended funding. And one woman, Catherine, was standing in the middle of the fire, trying to act like she wasn't burning. We just need to weather the outrage cycle, she snapped at her assistant as she stepped out of the elevator on the 43rd floor. Give it another week and they'll be mad about something else. But the hallway was quiet. Too quiet. She pushed open the door to her executive suite and stopped short. The design team's mural had been torn down. On the wall, a projector now displayed a simple phrase in stark black letters. We don't work for racists. Catherine stood frozen, then slammed the door behind her. Get Burke in here. Now. Across town, Marcus was feeling the storm hit in ways he hadn't imagined. It started with the messages, DMs from strangers. Some supportive. Some not. You're a racist dog. Hope you know what you've done. White people don't forget. Stay in Harlem, monkey. Sierra had wanted to delete them all, but Marcus made her save them. If something happens, I want a trail, he said quietly. The calls came next. 2 from blocked numbers. 1 from an anonymous caller, who said he should quit playing the victim or wind up like Trayvon. And then came the flyer. It was slipped under the door sometime in the early morning. A grainy printout of his face, taken from the viral video with a red crosshair drawn on his forehead. Sierra screamed when she found it. Marcus didn't. He just sat down at the kitchen table and stared. I didn't even do anything, he muttered. His mother reached over and took his hand. You told the truth, she said. And some people hate truth more than lies. In her office, Catherine's temper was reaching volcanic levels. She tried everything. Media consultants. Online damage control. She even recorded a 2-minute TikTok clip with her cat and a quote about unity that went over like a lead balloon. People don't want sincerity, she snapped to Avery Burke. They want blood. No, Avery replied coolly, they want integrity. Which you've never had to practice because until now no one ever asked you for it. That stung. Burke stood and set a file down on the table. What's that? Exit strategy. Catherine's eyes went wide. Excuse me? It's over, Kath. Your leadership is costing us more than your vision is saving. The investors want you out. She barked a humorless laugh. You can't oust me from the company I built. Burke didn't flinch. You didn't build it alone. You stood on people, Catherine. You just didn't expect them to stand up. The door shut behind him with a quiet finality. Meanwhile, Marcus had tried to return to normal. He showed up to his gig at a downtown restaurant, wearing the same pressed black shirt and slacks he always did. But the whispers followed him. A couple at table 4 pointed and murmured. The hostess told him a patron had asked for a different server who isn't famous for playing the victim. Then the manager pulled him aside. I think it's best you take the rest of the week off, she said. Because I'm a distraction? She didn't answer. He left without taking off his apron. Later that night, he sat on the fire escape of his building, phone in hand, staring at an email from an activist org in D.C. We'd love for you to come speak at our upcoming summit. Honorarium included. Travel covered. Full media coverage. He could go. Step into the spotlight. Start turning the pain into a platform. But he wasn't sure if he was ready. Or if he wanted to be someone's symbol instead of just a man trying to survive. The screen blinked. Another email. This one from a lawyer representing Langford Innovations. It was short. My client would like to meet. Not for PR. For something real. Please consider. Marcus closed the phone without answering. Not yet. At Langford HQ, the board called an emergency meeting. The discussion was brutal. Financials in freefall. Lawsuits on the horizon. One investor compared Catherine's leadership to steering the Titanic with a martini in hand. She sat at the head of the table, arms folded, face unreadable. Let me speak plainly, said Burke. We need a public correction. A reckoning. A face-to-face with the man you humiliated. An apology that cost you something. I won't let him humiliate me back, Catherine snapped. No one said this would be comfortable. There was a pause. Then someone from legal added, you may not have a company left to be humiliated in if you don't act soon. The news cycle had taken on a life of its own. Pundits argued across every network. Protesters gathered outside Langford HQ with signs that read, Tech has a race problem, and it's not just Catherine. A group of Langford engineers staged a walkout live stream to 3.2 million people. Every inch of Catherine's past was under scrutiny. Photos with controversial donors. Emails leaked. Comments dissected like sacred texts. And Marcus? He stayed quiet. For now. One evening, after a long walk around the city in a hoodie and ball cap, Marcus sat alone on a bench in Morningside Park. He stared out across the city skyline, wondering what came next. Wondering what justice looked like in a world that always asked black men to play either hero or villain. The phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from someone anonymous. Just 3 words. Make her pay. Marcus stared at the screen. Then finally he replied to Catherine's lawyer. I'll meet. But not in secret. Not behind closed doors. If she wants to talk, she can do it in front of the world. He hit send. The lights were so bright they made Marcus's eyes water. Across from him, Catherine Langford sat with her back straight, chin lifted half an inch too high, like she was still trying to stay taller than the moment. She wore a muted navy pantsuit, no jewelry, no visible logos. Just clean, clinical contrition. Her stylist had suggested, humble but not humiliated. Marcus wore a gray sweater and slacks. No tie. His hair pulled back, his hands still. They sat on opposite ends of a glossy oak table beneath the MSNBC studio lights. Between them, anchor Jordan Halstead, hosting a special episode titled, The Apology Hour, Race, Power, and the Reckoning at Langford. Millions were watching. Let's begin, Halstead said, voice crisp. Catherine, you requested this meeting. Why? Catherine cleared her throat softly. I'm here because I said something deeply wrong. Something that hurt a man who didn't deserve it. And I want to take responsibility for that. Halstead turned to Marcus. Do you accept the apology? Marcus didn't blink. No. Because she hasn't given it yet. She gave a performance. Not an apology. The studio fell silent. Catherine's jaw twitched. He continued. What happened at that party wasn't a slip. It wasn't a joke that went wrong. It was a system speaking through a person. Halstead raised an eyebrow. A system? Marcus turned toward the camera. A system that tells rich white people that black men only belong when they're useful. Quiet. Subservient. A system that laughs when we're humiliated and looks away when we fight back. He paused, then looked Catherine dead in the eye. I wasn't your bartender that night. I was your target. Catherine blinked. Art. I didn't mean to. But you did it. I didn't know it would. But you said it. Catherine exhaled, shaky. I said something cruel. Ugly. I thought I was being clever and I was being a coward. I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to spin it, fix it, bury it. But the truth is I need to face it. Marcus nodded once. That finally sounded like a beginning. The segment rolled on. Clips of protests outside Langford HQ. Testimonies from former employees describing microaggressions and a toxic corporate culture. A timeline of plummeting stock prices and canceled contracts. Marcus sat through it all, arms crossed, eyes steady. Then came the final segment. A direct 10-minute conversation between Marcus and Catherine. No anchor. No editing. Just the two of them. And the world. You still don't get it? Marcus said softly. Then tell me, Catherine replied, leaning forward. This wasn't just about me. It was about everyone watching who saw their own humiliation in mine. You didn't just insult me. You reminded every black employee who's ever been treated like furniture that their pain is entertainment. Catherine's hands were folded tightly in her lap. She said nothing. You know what made it worse? Marcus asked. What? You laughed. And then you expected me to laugh with you. Catherine swallowed hard. I've been trying to fix things, she said. I started new internal policies. It's not about policies, Marcus interrupted. It's about people. It's about leadership. And whether you're willing to step aside so someone better can do what you failed to. That hit her like a slap. You want me to quit? I want you to understand that your time at the top cost people their dignity. And no apology can reverse that. But stepping aside? Letting someone else rebuild what you broke? That's something real. The segment cut back to Halstead. I think that's where we'll leave it, he said gently. Thank you both. The screen faded to black. And then the internet exploded. Within 20 minutes, #ApologyHour was trending #1 worldwide. Clips of Marcus's statements were clipped, captioned, and memed. News anchors called his composure a masterclass in restraint. Catherine's face, caught in a dozen frames of discomfort, was passed around like a cautionary tale. One viral tweet read, "This man just dismantled a billionaire on live TV without raising his voice. That's power." Another, "We don't want apologies. We want the seat at the table." Langford Innovations board held an emergency call at midnight. The PR team wanted to lean into the broadcast, spin it as a turning point. But investors were pushing for Catherine's resignation. Burke, cool as ever, delivered the verdict. Catherine stays on, but not alone. They needed a move. A bold one. Marcus was back in Harlem the next morning, sitting at the kitchen table with his mother, sipping lukewarm coffee. Sierra paced the room, phone glued to her hand, reading him headlines like a rapid-fire podcast. "The future of accountability is black," she read. "Langford employee goes from punchline to power broker. Marcus, they're calling you a hero." "I'm not a hero," he said quietly. "No," Denise said, "but you showed what one might look like." His phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Burke. The subject line read, "Proposal, executive role at Langford, Chief Ethics and Culture Officer." He stared at it for a long moment. Then another buzz. A follow-up. "Let's meet." Catherine will not be present. That meeting took place in a quiet corner of Soho. Burke arrived wearing no tie, sleeves rolled up, eyes clear. "We need change. Not a mascot. Not a poster. Someone who'll rebuild the house while the old one's still smoldering." "You mean someone to clean up Catherine's mess?" Burke didn't flinch. I mean someone to take over the parts she never knew how to handle. And what happens when the board turns on me? They won't, Burke said, sliding over a file. Because this time you're not the help. Inside, a formal job offer, executive-level salary, full authority over hiring, culture, and internal justice policy. Marcus closed the file. He didn't smile. But he nodded. I'll do it. On one condition. Name it. You give me the power to fire the people who made this company sick. Including the ones you're afraid to. Burke sat back. That's going to piss off a lot of powerful people. Marcus stood. Good. That night the news broke again. From victim to visionary, Marcus Reed hired as senior executive at Langford Innovations. The photo showed Marcus walking through the Langford HQ doors, not as a servant but as leadership. Catherine wasn't in the photo. And for the first time in weeks, the world didn't ask where she was. They were too busy watching what Marcus would do next. The first thing Marcus noticed about Langford Innovations wasn't the view from the 42nd floor or the smell of money in the carpets. It was the silence when he walked in. Not quiet. Silence. Dozens of eyes tracked him as he passed through the open office. Mostly white. Mostly wary. Some suspicious. Some performatively cheerful. Not a single person said, "Welcome." He stepped into his office, sleek, glass-lined, unreasonably large. A desk already stocked with custom stationery bearing the title. Chief Ethics and Culture Officer, Marcus Reed. He stared at the words for a long time. They felt like a test. The first few days were a parade of meetings. HR compliance. Board introductions. Welcome, Zooms filled with fake smiles and tight voices. He listened more than he talked. Took notes. Memorized names. Noticed who leaned in and who looked through him. Some employees were warm. A junior data engineer named Rima slipped him a note on day 2. "We've been waiting for someone like you." Others were less subtle. In one executive meeting, a VP of strategy asked, "Do we have any guardrails in place for ensuring that diversity efforts don't compromise productivity?" Marcus looked at him evenly. "Do we have any guardrails for making sure productivity doesn't compromise people?" The room went quiet. Catherine had vanished from the building. Rumors swirled. Rehab, sabbatical, vacation in Portugal. But her presence lingered in every hallway, in every department that still carried her imprint. Her allies watched Marcus like he was the virus, not the cure. He knew what they thought. That he was a stunt. A token. A short-term fix to a long-term PR crisis. But he hadn't come to be liked. He'd come to change the rules. By week 2, Marcus launched the Langford Accountability Initiative. The mission was clear. Anonymous reporting channels for discrimination and abuse. New hiring protocols for leadership diversity. A zero-tolerance policy on racial harassment, no exceptions. He started by firing the VP of Marketing, who had once called a black intern urban, in a strategy meeting. The news spread through the office like a thunderclap. The intern quit last year. But Marcus sent him an offer letter that same night. Full-time. Competitive pay. A mentorship guarantee. The intern posted the story on LinkedIn. It went viral. Again. Not everyone was cheering. In the cafeteria, he overheard 2 executives whispering over overpriced salads. "This is just about optics. Wait 6 months. He'll be gone." Someone had written "die" in marker on his office door one morning. The security cameras didn't catch who. Marcus scrubbed it off himself. The pressure wore him down in layers. At night he barely slept. His mother was proud but worried. Sierra called every day to ask if he'd eaten. And then there were the public expectations. Speaking invitations. Media requests. Think pieces with headlines like, "Can one man fix corporate racism?" The weight of it all pressed into his chest. He wasn't just being asked to lead. He was being asked to redeem. Catherine finally returned 3 weeks later. She walked into the building like nothing had changed even though everything had. Her hair pulled back tight, heels louder than her voice. She didn't speak to Marcus directly, but the tension followed her like perfume. She lingered in doorways. Sat silently in meetings she used to dominate. Her allies tried to ignore her, tried harder to ignore him. Until one day she stopped him in the elevator. "I heard you fired Jensen. He violated company policy. He closed $10 million in contracts last year." "Good for him," Marcus said. "Now he can do it somewhere else." She pressed the button for floor 43. You know, there's a difference between dismantling a company and running it. I'm not dismantling it, Marcus replied. I'm disinfecting it. The doors opened. Neither moved. Then Catherine gave him a faint smile. Careful, Marcus. You're starting to sound like me. The doors closed before he could answer. By the second month, the atmosphere in the building began to shift. The DEI team, previously just one overworked intern, had grown to a real department. An employee-led Black affinity group formed under Marcus's guidance and held its first town hall. 30 people showed up. Then 60. Then over 200. He didn't give a speech. He handed the mic to others. Let stories breathe. Let pain air out in full view. People cried. Then they clapped. Something was changing. And it had Marcus's fingerprints all over it. But not everyone was ready. A memo leaked from inside legal suggesting they contain the influence of the new ethics office to prevent mission drift. Another executive requested that Marcus be retrained on professional decorum after he corrected her mispronunciation of an African colleague's name. Burke brought Marcus the reports. You still in? He asked. Marcus nodded. Then keep swinging. At home, Marcus looked in the mirror one night and barely recognized himself. He wasn't broken. He wasn't tired. But he was different. Harder. Sharper. Less patient. The role was sharpening him into something new. Something necessary. He'd once told himself he'd leave if the job ever changed him too much. But now he wondered, what if the change was the point? 6 weeks after he joined Langford Innovations, Marcus sat in front of the board. Burke spoke first. We've seen record employee engagement. Internal survey scores are up 40%. Attrition has dropped. Culture is improving. Marcus stood, buttoned his jacket. But we're not done, he said. This company isn't saved just because the media stopped watching. He looked around the room, direct, calm, unwavering. We started something. I intend to finish it. But I won't be a token. I won't be a shield. I will be a leader. No one spoke. Then one board member clapped. Then another. Then the room. Outside the building, the world kept spinning. But inside Langford Innovations, the center of gravity had shifted. The man who once cleaned glasses in the corner of a party now held power. Real power. Not because it was handed to him. Because he took it and dared to wield it. Langford Innovations was thriving. For the first time in years, its name wasn't followed by scandal. It was followed by buzzwords like ethical reinvention, cultural leadership, and the Marcus effect. Under Marcus's leadership, revenue rose 12% in a single quarter. Employee satisfaction scores shattered company records. Recruitment shifted dramatically, drawing diverse talent from across the country. The media called it a renaissance. But inside the building, Marcus Reed was no longer the scrappy underdog. He was the boss now. And the shift was unmistakable. In a glass conference room overlooking the Hudson, Marcus clicked through the final slides of a high-level investor pitch. Around him, executives nodded, jotted notes, hung on every word. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, spoke with precision, projected quiet confidence. And we're positioning Langford as not just a tech company, but as a cultural blueprint, he finished. A new model for corporate accountability, without sacrificing innovation. Applause. Burke leaned over as the room emptied. You're officially the face of this place now. Marcus nodded, eyes fixed on the skyline. Good. Then I'll shape it in my image. He meant it. At night, he gave keynote speeches at sold-out conferences. During the day, he sat on Zoom panels with Harvard professors and tech billionaires, fielding questions about ethics and leadership. He published a guest essay in The Atlantic titled, The Difference Between Diversity and Dignity. It trended for 2 days. Everyone wanted a piece of Marcus Reed. Everyone except the people closest to him. Bro, you don't even answer your phone anymore, Andre said over lunch in Harlem. Marcus barely looked up from his email. I've been busy. I get that. But busy doing what? You still haven't visited Mom since the second promotion. Marcus finally looked up. I'm building something real, Dre. Not just for me. For all of us. Andre sipped his coffee, unimpressed. Just make sure it's not only for you. Inside Langford HQ, the employees once inspired by Marcus began to murmur. The open door policy closed. The town hall stopped. The DEI team now had to go through 2 layers of approval before launching new initiatives. The same intern Marcus once uplifted quit quietly, citing lack of access. Rima, the data engineer who had first slipped him that hopeful note, now sat in a quiet corner of the 38th floor, watching her emails to Marcus go unanswered. When she finally cornered him in the elevator, she didn't waste time. "You're becoming one of them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "One of who?" "The people who forget what it's like not to be heard." He didn't respond. The elevator dinged. He stepped out without looking back. Catherine noticed it first. She had faded from public view, serving now as ceremonial chairwoman, her title polished but powerless. But she still watched from a distance. The more praise Marcus received, the more distant he became from the man who had stared her down in that studio. She saw the way he delegated his conscience to committees. She saw the self-righteous streak forming in his eyes. She saw herself. And for the first time she almost smiled. By the end of Q2, Langford Innovations was hailed as the most dramatically transformed tech firm in North America. The company released a new AI product designed by a team composed almost entirely of women and people of color. It smashed early projections. A Wired cover story read, "Langford's Redemption: How Marcus Reed Saved a Dying Company and Remade It in His Own Image." Burke approached Marcus one evening in his office. "You know, you're not the same man who sat here 6 months ago." Marcus looked up from his tablet. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "I'm saying it like it's a warning." Marcus leaned back. "You brought me in to fix the system. Now I am the system." "Exactly," Burke said. "So be careful what kind of system you become." That weekend, Marcus returned to Harlem alone. He walked past the bodega he used to buy breakfast from before shift work. Past the rec center that still had a broken lock on the basketball court fence. A group of teens walked past him, not recognizing him at all. And for a strange moment he felt invisible again. But this time it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like distance. He stopped in front of a closed storefront with a faded for lease sign in the window. He stood there for a long time. Then pulled out his phone and called Sierra. "I think I want to build something," he said. "Something real." "Like what?" "Something that doesn't need cameras to matter." It was official. On a humid Monday morning in August, the board of Langford Innovations announced that Marcus Reed would assume the role of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. The headlines exploded. Langford's first black CEO makes history. From bartender to boardroom, Marcus Reed ascends. The redemption of a brand, and a man. Flashbulbs greeted him as he walked into the building. Staff clapped. Cameras clicked. PR reps fluttered around like nervous birds. Marcus adjusted his tie, nodded once and entered the elevator alone. Up, 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 to the 43rd floor. The top. His name was already etched on the frosted glass office door. Marcus Reed, Chief Executive Officer. He paused before entering. Then pushed through. It was real now. At the press conference, Marcus stood behind the podium, calm and polished. "I started here as a stranger. Now I lead this company with purpose. This isn't just about me, it's about changing the future of who gets to lead and how." The applause was thunderous. Somewhere in the back of the crowd, Catherine Langford watched with arms crossed and lips tight. She didn't speak to anyone. But she didn't leave either. Inside the company, the vibe shifted instantly. Executives now tripped over themselves to stay in Marcus's good graces. Every word he said in meetings was quoted like scripture. Even critics went silent, for now. Burke stopped him in the hallway. "They love you right now." "I know. That's dangerous." Marcus gave a half smile. "So is staying small." In the first weeks of his CEO tenure, Marcus made sweeping moves. He gutted departments Catherine once handpicked and replaced them with diverse, younger, sharper teams. He restructured leadership training, requiring cultural competency for advancement. He tripled investments in ethical AI research. He also demanded 12-hour workdays, fired 4 underperformers without warning, and declined 2 parental leave requests citing momentum. His new executive assistant, a brilliant grad from Morehouse, said nothing, but watched everything. So did Rima. She'd stayed quietly despite the tension. And now she saw something she didn't like. One morning, a black intern named Jaden requested a one-on-one with Marcus. "Something's off," Jaden said. "The team leads talked down to us. A guy on the AI team called me aggressive for asking to present." Marcus nodded absently. I'll talk to HR. HR is the problem, Jaden said. They exist to protect the company, not us. Marcus looked up. I hired HR. Jaden stared at him. Exactly. There was a long pause. Then Jaden stood. I looked up to you, man. Still kinda do. But if you're not going to fix this, who will? Marcus didn't respond. But the words followed him. They echoed louder when Catherine appeared at a board dinner 2 days later, smiling like she hadn't ever been erased. Congratulations, she said sweetly. It's a thrill to see you climb the ladder I built. He poured water into his glass slowly. I'm replacing that ladder with a door. She laughed, low and patronizing. And you think doors can't be locked? Marcus set down the pitcher. Don't forget, she added, I was the face before you. And when they tire of you, they'll want something familiar again. He stood. Then I'll burn the building before I let you back in. Catherine's smile never wavered. But Marcus, you are the building now. By month 3 the cracks were growing. His assistant quit without notice, citing incompatibility. The black employee group asked for a meeting to address concerns over Marcus's detachment. Even Burke pulled him aside. You're slipping, he said. I'm winning, Marcus replied. At what cost? Marcus didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure anymore. He walked the halls less now. Spoke at more conferences than staff meetings. The community that once lifted him now felt far away, like a childhood he outgrew. Emails went unread. Questions went unanswered. People stopped confiding. They started obeying. That terrified Marcus more than anything. But he didn't stop. Couldn't. Because part of him liked the way it felt to never be questioned. One Friday afternoon, Rima stood in his doorway uninvited. Do you have a minute? Make it fast. She walked in anyway. Jaden quit today. Marcus looked up. Why? He said this place felt more dangerous now than it did under Catherine. That stung. Badly. Rima didn't soften the blow. I remember when you were the one fighting to be heard. Now you're too busy being right. He said nothing. She turned to leave. You asked for a seat at the table, Marcus, she said quietly. But don't forget, we didn't want a new king. We wanted a new system. The door closed behind her. Marcus sat alone. No headlines. No clapping. Just the echo of a truth he didn't want to face. That night, he returned to the same storefront in Harlem, the one with the faded for lease sign. This time he had the key. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Dust, silence, old echoes. But also, possibility. He pulled out his phone. Not to check the stock price. Not to check LinkedIn. He called Sierra. Remember that nonprofit idea I had? Yeah. I think it's time. 1 year later, Langford Innovations had a new name. Reed & Company. The rebrand wasn't official, just what people called it now. Investors whispered it in meetings. Podcasts praised Marcus Reed as a visionary, a reformer, a symbol of corporate atonement. But Marcus wasn't in the building anymore. He wasn't in the corner office. He wasn't even in New York. Because 6 months ago he'd stepped down. I could have stayed, he told Sierra, sitting in the new cafe attached to his nonprofit center. Kept pushing, kept fixing, kept climbing. But you didn't, she said, sipping her tea. No. Why? Marcus looked through the wide glass windows at the bustling Harlem sidewalk. Kids laughed across the street. A woman sold books from a folding table. A man fixed a broken bike for free. Because I don't want to be in rooms where I'm the only one who gets to speak. He smiled. I want to build rooms where everyone's voice matters. The Reed Initiative was headquartered in the heart of Harlem, inside the very building he used to pass as a broke bartender. The mission: invest in black and brown entrepreneurs from underserved communities. No red tape. No pitch decks. Just vision, grit, and support. Within 4 months, they'd launched 6 businesses. One of them, a bookstore run by 2 formerly incarcerated brothers, was already turning a profit. The Reed Initiative became a model for microfunding equity. Foundations took notice. News outlets called it the real future of reparative economics. But Marcus didn't pose for those stories anymore. He preferred the background now. Let others take the mic. Let the future speak for itself. Catherine Langford sat alone on a podcast that no one listened to anymore. The host asked her about her legacy. I built something lasting, she said, voice tight. Marcus just finished the house I designed. The host raised an eyebrow. But he's the one they remember. She bristled. Because the world prefers a redemption story to a complicated woman. The episode got 3,000 streams. No one shared it. By then the world had moved on. Langford Innovations had too. The board, with Marcus's final blessing, promoted Rima to Chief Strategy Officer. The same intern Catherine once mocked now sat on the executive leadership team. The company she once ruled had remade itself without her. Completely. One gray morning, Marcus stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Reed Center for Justice and Enterprise, a sleek new building with brickwork that echoed the neighborhood's history. His mother, wrapped in a gold scarf, held the scissors. "This isn't just your name," she told him softly. "It's ours." And when the ribbon fell, applause filled the air, not the hollow kind from investors, but the real, full-bellied kind that comes from people who see themselves reflected in the future. Later that week, Marcus visited a local high school for a career day. He wore no suit, just a hoodie and jeans. A girl raised her hand. "Are you rich?" He chuckled. "Depends who you ask." "Did you ever want to be famous?" "Not really. I wanted to be free." "Free how?" He thought for a long moment. "Free to walk into any room and not feel small. Free to say no to power. Free to give it away." The students didn't fully understand yet. But they would. One day. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, Marcus stood on the roof of the Reed Center. He looked out over Harlem, his Harlem, not with the hunger he once had, but with peace. He didn't crave the top floor anymore. He was building a whole new foundation. And this time he wasn't building it alone. Beside him stood Rima, Burke, Sierra, Andre, and a dozen other people who had walked the long road with him. Some from the beginning. Some who joined once the doors were open. But all of them walking forward now, together. Before they left, Sierra nudged him. "You ever think about what would have happened if she never said that joke?" "All the time," he said. And I think I still would have made it." He turned toward her. "Just maybe not this far. Not this, true." They both smiled. Then walked inside into the future they'd finally built, not by erasing the past, but by outgrowing it. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.